after we introduce who's here.
Yes. I'm going to have the principal start coming
Connie,
back.
get back here. Connie.
It is a little bit past 7. We're actually ready to go up here. We are just waiting for our online to join us, and as soon as we get that rolling, we'll begin. Are we good? All right, welcome everybody tonight. Today is September 1st, 2020. And it's nice to see, not a full room, but it's nice to see many people join us here this evening, and we know we have some followers online as well. Let's begin tonight by introductions, starting with Connie.
Connie Anderson.
Chris Wynn.
Todd Zinger. Terry Bodden.
Martin Bates, Superintendent.
Karen Winder, Board President. And Nicole, are you on the line?
I am Nicole McDermott.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Martin.
Yes, I'd like to introduce somebody. Lexi Cunningham. This is Lexi. She's the new Terry Shoemaker. She's the new
New and improved.
new director of the state
I said that.
of the State Superintendent Association. She emailed me and said, "Hey, I'm just kind of going around to kind of get a feel for how different boards do different things and the many stresses on superintendents all over the state," something like that, right? And I said, "You'll absolutely be welcome, but I will introduce you." So, Lexi Cunningham.
Yeah, thanks for joining us tonight, Lexi. Okay, next we'll have our pledge given by Jared Broderick, principal at Truman Elementary. If you'll come forward.
Please repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Jared. For our reverence, with the COVID conditions, we're still not quite ready to invite our cute little choirs that will normally come and sing for us and have a packed room of parents watching. So we're still going to have board members do reverences, and I've asked Connie Anderson to do the reverence this evening.
This was something that's been on my mind for a while, and I wish I had have researched all this information when COVID started, but I've got a couple of articles. The one I want to start with is How to Find Happiness During the Summer of 2020. And it talks about, we've got this battle with COVID that is all around us. And a new survey shows that another victim of the pandemic may be our happiness. The survey conducted by NORC at the University of Chicago found that our happiness is at a 50-year low, with just 14% of Americans saying they're very happy. In 2018, the number was 31%. So I looked through, and I can't believe I spent this many hours looking at ways to be optimistic and happy. And there are lists after list after list online, and I read most of them, but I just picked out one, and it's from a website called Bloomback, and the title is longer than I want to say, but there were 7 things, and it seemed like most lists had common things. So I'm just going to read through this because I think we live in a world now where we're seeing people that are optimistic and people that are negative. And so these are things to do during COVID in our everyday lives that can help us be happier. Okay, number 1, start each day with a grateful heart. Research shows that gratitude is strongly associated with greater happiness. To evoke positive emotions in you, make it a habit to bring to mind the things you're grateful for every day. Give thanks for having a brand new day to use and do good. Appreciate the great support system you're backed by. Feel blessed that you are healthy today, as someone who's been battling the virus would love to be right now, and that you live your life being happy about that right now. Fill your mind with positivity and watch yourself become a happier person. Number 2 is find the good in the bad. While it may seem like a negative situation could turn out to be one of the biggest lessons or realizations you will have in life. What is the negative situation could be the biggest lesson or realization you learn in life. Take the current pandemic, for example. In Italy, despite being hard hit, they displayed solidarity as they sang their national anthem in unison, inspiring the rest of the world to stay united. And we're in circumstances with COVID that are hard, but we could consider it a blessing in disguise to be able to do little things you love that you never prioritized. Spending quality time with your family, pursuing new hobbies like mask making, working out, and it says working out over and over and over again, and staying fit. Train your mind to see the good in everything. I think number 3 is probably my favorite. Surround yourself with optimistic people. Not literally, of course, because you still have to maintain social distancing, but you get my point. And this is the part that's underlined in yellow, because I used to be a teacher. That's what I do. The last thing we need now is family members and friends who do nothing but whine about the situation, criticize the measures taken, and spread fear. Drowning yourself in such toxicity will not do any good. Instead, be with optimistic people who see the light in the darkness. They share uplifting articles, remind you to stay safe and check on your well-being. As a result, you become a more positive and happy person. Okay, it says guard your body and your mind. And it talks about some of the things that people have suffered. But it says, while the crucial steps in keeping your body safe, such as maintaining good hygiene and practicing social distancing, take steps to keep your mind healthy as well. You can work out, and I have a trainer named Kenny, and halfway through that workout, I'm cursing him, but boy, by the time I'm done, I'm saying, thank you, Kenny. I have guns, okay? And pursue relaxing hobbies. Have a healthy relationship with the internet. Don't spend so much time on the internet researching COVID, even though everything you read on the internet is true. Okay. Trust the news from official sources only. Also, limit the time you spend on the internet during this period, particularly social media. Don't get sucked into this modern day black hole reading never-ending bad news in people's comments and end up feeling overwhelmed, fearful, or miserable. Number 6, spread love and kindness. During a pandemic, it is the frontline workers such as doctors and nurses and transport drivers, and I'm going to say teachers, who take high risks and make the most sacrifice. They deserve all the respect and love. When you see something, say something. The last one is never lose your smile. This may feel like odd advice now because we're all wearing a mask, to smile while terrible things are happening around the world. You may not feel like it, but it will actually uplift your mood. Those around you will see you smiling and most likely respond with a smile back, even if they're under harsh circumstances. We know that coronavirus isn't going to disappear overnight, but it will be easier to get through by smiling and staying positive. Ben has just a very short video that I was introduced to when I visited Skyline High School, and it's one of their assistant principals talking about cleaning, and this is how you can influence people to be positive and happy. At least I thought it was.
Oh, there you go, teachers. Just want to go over something real quick with you. I think it's been sent out pretty clearly, but obviously we need to make it clear about our
Awesome. Thank you, Connie. Good messages. Okay, next on our agenda is patron participation. We have one signed up. Where is Maria here? All right, Maria, we're going to actually have you hold for just a minute. And then if you wouldn't mind, we'll call you up when we talk about the Taylorsville reconfiguration part of our agenda. Is that okay? All right, great. So moving on, we have a consent agenda. Board members have had this agenda since Thursday or Friday. And so with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion we can thank you. I lost that word out of my brain. I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any other concerns or questions from board members? Nicole? Nope. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Motion passes unanimous. Okay. Next, we have an information item, Mill Creek Community Reinvestment Area. Is that what CRA stands for, Mike? Okay, good. I got it. Dave Garrett and you have a microphone, Dave? Okay, good. This is Mike Winder. I'm actually related by marriage to him. He's my husband, but he's here as an employee as the Director of Economic Development at Mill Creek City. So I don't know, are you giving it, Dave, or?
No, you stole my introduction, Mike.
All right, there you go. Take it away.
Nice to have you with us tonight. About 4 months ago, representatives from Mill Creek City started meeting with administrative members regarding the medical tech community reinvestment area, right? And the project, and they have asked that they can present that information to the board tonight. There will be no formal vote for the board tonight. There is no longer a tech committee, so we don't direct tech committee members. But we would like a nod tonight if you're in favor of the project so that we can start working on the interlocal agreement, which will be a signed agreement between the two entities. We will bring that back to you at the next board meeting when that's completed before it's finally signed off. So Mike, if you'd just go through the information, we'd appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Dave. Let's see, Mr. Horsley, if you could please put up the presentation. It's the one with the Mill Creek logo. There you go.
Uh-oh.
That's the Granite logo, the Mill Creek. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, Madam, beautiful Madam President and fair-looking board members. Great being here with all of you. And this is actually a technician at St. Mark's Hospital. I don't know if you're aware, but St. Mark's Hospital is not only Mill Creek's largest employer, 1,700 people, but it's also one of the nation's leaders in robotics. And so they're doing some cool things over there. And so anchored by the largest employer in Mill Creek, the foundation of one of the finest medical tech centers in the West is taking shape. And those of you who are familiar with the 39th South Corridor there know that not only do you have St. Mark's Hospital, but you're getting more and more kind of spin-offs and medical technology companies that are helping people. It's an area we believe that has enormous potential, but it needs a little bit of help. And we're convinced that we can do some things to help increase the property tax base of that area, which not only helps Mill Creek City, but it helps Granite School District and Salt Lake County and the Water District and all the other taxing entities that are part of that, part of this area. So St. Mark's Hospital is owned by HCA Healthcare, a national company. And they're looking at where to deploy different resources right now. And they don't have unlimited resources, especially in this post-COVID environment, but they have some resources. And on their short list is a possibility of adding a new North Tower to St. Mark's Hospital. And you can see that the hospital, new North Tower would be there on, well, the north side, imagine that, but they're at the main entrance now. But it include a new lobby, 3 endoscopy procedure rooms, 34 private patient rooms, some room to grow, 34 patient rooms on the 5th level, and more, including new drop-off canopies. So it'd be a great addition. St. Mark's is a for-profit hospital, unlike many in the region, which is good for those of us collecting property tax. But also with the free market forces at play, they need to be competitive as well in the market. So we're proposing a MedTech CRA, which stands for Community Reinvestment Area. And the boundaries of those, you can see your St. Mark's Hospital there in the center, with some of the other commercial up and down 39th South for a little bit. We're not including the residential in the yellow. It's just all the commercial there around St. Mark's. And we estimate, again, for those of you maybe listening who aren't sure how community reinvestment areas work, what happens is we don't increase the property taxes of anybody in that area, but we try to encourage new growth to come into that area, and when we capture the increment or new taxes that are generated, which this North Tower and other spin-off businesses would be, that's money that we can put into a project area to help make this happen. And so we estimate that there would be increment of $500,000 per year. 30% of that would pass through immediately to the taxing entities. And then at the end of the period, obviously, it jumps back up to the full amount. That leaves $350,000 of adjusted increment. Some of that by state law needs to go to admin and affordable housing. But then the remainder, we would propose to reimburse HCA for the enhanced facade for 10 years. So that's the carrot that they would need to build that North Tower, without which we're not sure they would, because they have other markets they could spend their money on. And then the Mill Creek Elementary is in that area, and Mill Creek City has the well-respected Promise program that this district's been very generous to support and help the underprivileged kids there in West Mill Creek. And because Mill Creek Elementary is in the project area, we would be able to do some additional support there. And then eventually, we say 10 years, it may be more or less than that. Maybe there's a portion of that playing field that could be part of a park improvement or something in the neighborhood. We have a little bit in there for streetscape, bus stop, and transit enhancements. That's actually a major transit corridor, and medical centers typically are. But there's nothing more heartbreaking than seeing a sweet old lady leaving from her hip appointment waiting in the rain because she doesn't have a nice covered bus stand like other places. And so we would be working to really enhance the streetscape and transit there. And then we would have an additional $100,000 per year that go into a bucket to fund building and infrastructure improvements to attract additional medical uses of the area. Again, these are additional carrots we could dangle to bring companies in. And again, and that just helps all of us as all of our property tax base there. So when we presented this with your staff, you have a very savvy staff. They looked at this and they said, you know what, Mike? They said, we really would rather get in and get out on these sorts of things. And so rather than 20 years at a 70% pass through, we'd rather go a little higher but be out in 15 years, which would be the same net dollar amount to the project area, but it would be actually some net present value savings of quite a bit to the district. And I said, well, we're happy to accommodate our friends at Granite School District. And then they said, you know what, we've done a lot of investment as a district into Mill Creek Elementary and frankly the Promise program generally in Mill Creek. And you have, and Mayor Silvestrini and the City Council are very appreciative of that. So they said, we'd rather not pay it all for the Promise program, and let's let some of the other taxing entities that are involved in this project step up with that if that's something you want to keep in, and it is. And it seemed like a fair request because of the great investment of Granite School District. Did I just turn this off? Oh, here we go. So the MedTech CRA in the end would give us a new North Tower for St. Mark's, support for the Promise program, again from Mill Creek City and other tax entities, encouraging park space not currently in the area, increasing attractiveness of transit, assisting new MedTech companies to locate, and even solving the restaurant drought along 39th South. There's a McDonald's and a Murray Callender's there, and not a lot of other options. And so there's a lot of daytime traffic there and patients. Yeah, we need to help with that, which helps sales tax and property tax. So these are the adjustments we made at Granite District's request. Granite wouldn't contribute any to the Promise program through the CRA, but we're going to leave it in there for the other taxing entities to do their piece. The other taxing entities will be committed for 20 years. Granite will only be for 15, but Granite will be at the 80% pass through, the others at the 70. So you can see there at the bottom, the years of participation are shorter, the pass-through percentage is higher, but the actual dollar amount saves the district $723,000, but we're still able to accomplish our goal as a city and as a larger community. So I think it's not only a great project that I believe in, and I think is a great investment that really helps our neighborhoods and helps grow our tax base, but I think Granite District's approach to it for your needs and purposes is actually pretty shrewd as well. So, Madam President, that concludes my presentation. I don't know if you or others on the board have any questions.
I'll open it up for questions. Any questions?
Dave, are we all right with this in your mind?
Say that.
Are we all right? You feel comfortable with this?
So the idea, board members, I think Mike said this, or Dave said this, we'll work now to negotiate an MOU and then bring that back.
Memo of understanding.
Memorandum of understanding, and we'll bring that back to the board for review and then approval if you see fit.
All right.
Okay, Mill Creek City appreciates the partnership with Granite School District, and there's give and take as we work towards our shared goals, and I think this is a great example of that, where it's going to help the school kids in the area, it's going to help the older folks in the area, and help grow our tax base, which is so important to deliver those essential services to our various constituencies. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mike.
See you.
See ya. Do you need me to pick up groceries or anything? No.
Yeah, I do.
How
Mike.
was the
How about
wedding?
you?
Ben's sanitizing everything for us. All right, so that was our information item of the evening. We have a first reading up next. It is the teacher licensing policy, and I believe, Doug, let's see, Donette? No, Doug, you're doing this?
Yeah.
Although
Donette can chime in as much as she wants.
All right, and are you going to preface the need for this policy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So this policy stems from the new USBE rule, R277301, educator licensing. And I'll just kind of give you the Cliff Note shorthand version. The State Board of Education essentially moved the responsibility for the ARL program to the districts. So what this policy does is it describes the way in which you all can request from USBE on behalf of an employee what's called an LEA specific license. And it's essentially the same process that an employee would have gone through if they'd gone through the old ARL program. Now, the only difference is that at the district level, we will be responsible for training the employees, for ensuring the quality of their instruction, for doing the instruction on pedagogy, on classroom management, and that kind of stuff. And what's going to happen is we will, really under the same timelines as well, be requesting from USBE these LEA-specific licenses for any employees who are hired without a state license, either a professional license or an associate's license. So that's really the crux of the policy. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. I know it's a little bit convoluted, or not convoluted, but it's a little bit technical, I guess, the policy itself. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Now, we still have to go back to the state, and they give their stamp of approval,
That's
so
correct.
to speak, correct? So we're just taking over all those qualifications and the training and saying, okay, they've checked all the boxes. We have these responsibilities.
That's
now
exactly
can we
right.
get your approval?
And the state has provided guidelines with respect to how to do those, how to do the trainings for teachers. And in fact, that's part of the reason we hired Travis for the position in human resources, so that he could help build that program in the district, which he has been hard at work doing. Yeah.
Where does the program where they have to the change from ARL to the new program, is that still done through the state office? So they have to do that through our HR? Okay.
Yes, that's exactly right. So essentially,
think you
we've
have
taken on
enough
that
to do.
responsibility of having those individuals who don't have a license but are working towards a license. HR will essentially administer that program from now on.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Go ahead, Nicole.
Of
Um,
course.
okay, so just for clarification purposes, the LEA specific license, will that turn into a state license, or will that just continue to be specific to our LEA?
That's a great question. It is specific. What's that? Well, you can if you want.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So it is intended to turn into a state license, but there will be some instances where somebody could stay on an LEA for the duration of their career. One of those instances would be like a dual immersion license or something where it's untenable for them to have to earn that number of credits. They'd have to do a whole new degree. And so there are instances where they can stay on the LEA. We have to petition the state to do that. But the vast majority of the individuals on an LEA license will move to an associate license within 3 years, as you can see outlined in the policy.
And just to clarify the other part of your question, Nicole, if an employee were to move from the district, that LEA license would be void. It would no longer be. It's not transferable from one LEA to the next.
Okay, because that was my second question. I guess in that same regard, if we get somebody from a different district that is working on a license, would we count any of that towards their license, or would they have to start over?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So they would have to start over with us, but so everyone in the room is aware, we had to file a plan with the State Office of Education or State Board of Education surrounding our ARL, which is called an APPLE program. It's Alternative Preparation Program, licensure for educators. So we had to file that plan to meet all of the teacher competencies in the content and the pedagogy areas. So our plan has already been approved. Other districts may have different plans, but similar, I mean, the classes are going to be similar, in particularly the pedagogy. The content probably as well. We teach a lot of the pedagogy classes here on our campus, so we're fortunate in that way. But yes, they would have to start over with a license, but would it be a complete start over? Probably not, because lots of those classes would cross right on over.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Now, there's a requirement that by school we list how many teachers have an LEA license
That's correct.
versus a state license. Do you want to address that?
Yeah,
a
so
minute?
it's subsection 8 there, right at the very end, D8. There is a requirement in USPE's rule that we have to disclose the number of teachers, not the names of teachers, but the number of teachers in a location that are on an LEA specific license. And so actually Donette and I had a conversation about this. I think that the HR directors around the state are still working on USPE a little bit to determine whether those have to be posted on the school's website or whether we can post them on the district's website. Mm-hmm. But yes, that information will be posted so that it will be publicly available, the number of teachers who are on an LEA-specific license at each individual site.
All right. Any other questions, board members? All right. This is an action item listed as a first reading, so I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the first reading for licensure for educators.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as a first reading the teacher licensing policy. Any other questions or concerns from the board? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, next we move on to our action items. We have a lot of principals in our audience today who have been invited here.
Ben's leading this off.
And Ben, are you ready to roll? We're going to do these. We have 3 networks that are seeking reconfiguration, and it's been a lengthy process, some for multiple years of work. And so tonight is the final action vote on these. We're going to take them one at a time, starting with the Kennedy Junior High reconfiguration. Ben.
I thought we were starting with Taylorsville, but we can certainly go to Kennedy.
On my list, it's Kennedy. Do you want to start with Taylorsville?
We definitely should go with that.
Okay.
So just as you've indicated, we do have our principals back in attendance today. If there are specific questions for them, I'm happy to answer questions in relation to the surveys and the community council votes. As you can see, there's just a quick summary and support 53% to the 27% opposition for the overall Kennedy Junior reconfiguration. You can see the breakdown in voting among the school community councils there, with almost all of them being unanimous with the exception of 2, but those 2 being overwhelmingly in favor. If there's other questions, we're happy to answer those.
Would you just remind me the standard that we've adopted as a board for approving these? Is it a simple majority or is there a percentage threshold?
It is what we deem a supermajority, which is 75% of the councils within a network. So 3/4.
Thank you. And with respect to each one of these, you'll give us that.
Happy to do so.
Indicate whether that threshold has been met or not.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Any other? So last month we went through kind of each school, each individual slide, each individual community council vote. Because we went through that and asked multiple questions last month, I don't think there is a need to revisit that, but board members have had a month to have their ears and eyes open to receive feedback. And so tonight we're basically just going to do a summary slide of each network. And with that, if there are no further questions regarding the Kennedy Junior High reconfiguration, I'll open it up for a motion.
I motion that we approve the reconfiguration for Kennedy Junior High.
Effective
2021, 2022
Yes.
school year.
All right.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the Kennedy Junior High reconfiguration for the 2020-2021 school. No, sorry, I said that wrong. 2021-2022 school year. And we have a motion and a second for that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Not on this one. We do have one for Taylorsville. Yeah. No, you're good. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right.
So our next, if I can proceed, is that?
Please do.
Thank you. For our next item, I believe, is the Taylorsville network
Correct.
reconfiguration. This one has been also long discussed. I would just point out that all these three networks are intertwined to some degree or another. We do have students who come from Fox Hills in the Kearns network who come over to Benyon Junior as part of the Gifted and Talented program. We also have Silver Hills, which is a split feeder in both the Kennedy Junior High network and the Kearns network. And so all these are kind of, as they kind of come up through the communities, they've kind of been looking over at one another saying, well, if you're going to go, we want to have those conversations. So the past few years is we've gone and done these meetings and answered questions for the communities. They've kind of all come in this culmination. You can see the numbers there in terms of net support, with overall being 53 to 22, 2-1 in favor. This group also does meet the supermajority threshold in favor. You can see what those numbers look like to the school community council voting results column there, and what the various school networks or individual school net support numbers look like as well. With that, we'd open it up to any questions. We have administrators here who can respond to those.
All right, can I call Maria Miles up now because she's here to comment on that? Is that a good time to do that? Yeah, come on up. All right, as you're coming up, just, right here, speak loud into the microphone, especially with the mask, and then remember to say your name and your address, and then you'll get your few minutes.
All right, thank you. My name is Maria Miles. My address is 4615 Balsam Avenue in Taylorsville. Thank you. I just wanted to come before all of you tonight and express my support for the reconfiguration of Taylorsville. I am a member of the Eisenhower Community Council, and I'm also on the District Community Council. My husband and I have 4 children that have gone through the Taylorsville schools. I have 2 in high school right now and 1 in Eisenhower, but we appreciate all the work that has been done on this, and I know that especially at Eisenhower, there's been a couple of concerns about safety. I want to express my personal feeling that Mrs. Liddell, and I have confidence in her that she will take that into consideration and that we will just move forward the best we can if that's what is voted. But in my time at Taylorsville, I have had to drive 3 athletes to the high school almost on a daily basis. And not only athletically, I had a son who needed to go to a math class at Taylorsville. And in his class, he was the only student in the school who went there. And so thankfully, I had the ability to pick him up every other day, take him from school to school, but just the ability to meet our students' needs, not only our low students, our high students, but all students will better have the ability to get the academic support that they need. And if a child didn't have a parent who could drive them, there may have been more kids qualified for that class, but sorry, I just can't get you there. And so I just feel strongly that way. I also work at John C. Fremont, very part-time, but I have seen 6th graders. I am a former teacher, and I taught 5th grade. I know what that looks like, and the difference between the littles and 6th graders and their behaviors and needs are so different. And with the 4 students I've had at Eisenhower, I have every confidence, and I'm sure Benyon is the same way, but there has been nothing but good that's come out of our kids' education at Eisenhower. And I'm confident that they will make the transition for our 6th graders appropriate and help them to acclimate into a new school. Anyway, I appreciate your time and the opportunity to give my support. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight and for those words. All right, so board members, Ben, are you done with your presentation part? Okay. I'll open it up for discussion. Questions, concerns, feedback? Anything? Nicole? Nope. All right.
No, but I'd like to make.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the reconfiguration of the Taylorsville network.
I'll second that.
Effective 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the table to accept the Taylorsville reconfiguration for the 2021-2022 school year. We have a second and a motion and a second. And any other concerns, questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I am.
1 opposed. We have a vote 6-1. Ms. Burgess opposes and it passes. All right, last reconfiguration, Kearns Junior High. There we go.
So with respect to this one, I left it for last because there's some little intricacies here. I'm just going to briefly explain to the highest degree possible. You can see the overall net support is plus 7%. So it's a little more balanced in this particular community. It does meet the supermajority threshold as an entire network. 9 out of the 12 schools in favor. The interesting thing on this one, I'd point out at the very bottom, Silver Hills Elementary, their council was unanimous in favor, but their community survey results were negative 28% for the portion of their boundary that feeds to Thomas Jefferson Junior High. As I mentioned earlier, they're a split feeder. So a very small portion, I pulled this up for you, that little triangle there on the bottom right-hand corner equates to about 15 different families. So when the portion of those that were surveyed as part of this survey, the Kearns/Jefferson Junior portion, that small sample was opposed. But then I'm going to point out something to you here on this slide. The Kennedy portion was plus 46%. So when you took the overall sample, there's overwhelming support in Silver Hills. So just that small portion in the Kearns, that's why we have that net survey result. That being said, their council was obviously in favor. We did have 3 councils in opposition, Diamond Ridge, which feeds into Jefferson. We also had Jefferson Junior High themselves, and West Kearns as part of the Kearns Junior Network was also opposed. You can see the net survey results for each of those respective communities. And with that, I'd open it up to questions from and we do have principals here to assist with those questions.
All right, I think, Chris, you had a
I
question.
have a question. So when we first started talking about this at the last meeting, when they moved the 6th graders, it left a really, in my opinion, unbalanced remaining portion at some of the schools, some of the elementaries. So would we have
You're talking population-wise?
Population-wise, yeah. So would we need some kind of boundary issue change eventually, or
I'm
will
glad you
that
brought
work
that
itself
up.
out?
Yeah, I think as we kind of settle in after the 21-22 school year, it would be nice to kind of, as we see with any boundary change or adjustment in reconfiguration, what those numbers settle in. I think Steve Hogan is well prepared to initiate with our population analysis committee boundary studies, not just in these areas, to shore up those numbers in particular elementary schools. We've discussed many times in front of this board the fact that small schools are not based on the overall population, but what we consider number of teachers per grade level, and generally anything less than 2 teachers per grade level is considered small. So removing a grade doesn't necessarily suddenly change a school population to small in our minds, The perception clearly is if you're under 300, that's a concern. So we would obviously want to balance those numbers out as best as we could, but we would want to wait to do those studies until after those numbers had kind of settled a little bit. And we can see that just not here in this network, but if Steve were here, I'm sure he'd indicate we anticipate doing some other studies in other places as we see those reconfigurations settle in as well.
Thank you, Ben.
Now, there's been some talk that we could approve the Kearns Junior High reconfiguration, but not the Jefferson Junior High, since they're more opposed. What can you address the pros and cons of that, or I guess maybe just the cons of that? I mean, what does that leave us with?
Yeah, so if you recall, a few months ago, Steve actually presented a boundary study list item for you, which was for Silver Hills to address this split feeder. If the board did want to pursue allowing just the Kearns network, junior network, to reconfigure and hold off on the Jefferson portion, then we would need to go forward with the boundary study to address this portion and this problem with these 15 to 20 families that would be impacted by this reconfiguration change. That being said, in the conversations that we've had with this broader community, Jefferson and its feeders have always been part of that process. And so it was always acknowledged that if the broader community was interested in doing this, which clearly 75% of the councils are in favor of, that they were also willing to go along with that. I believe Rod presented last month, Principal Horton indicated that his council acknowledged the fact that they might be receiving these sixth graders and they would prepare to do so and make a meaningful educational environment for those students. I believe the assistant principal is here if there's any other specific questions for him.
Well, I believe it was said that somewhere in the slides last month that even if it went through, even though their community council were not in favor, that they understood if the board decided that they would be fully supportive. Am I remembering that was pretty much stated last time, right? Okay. I just wanted to reiterate that. So basically, if we reconfigure the entire Kearns network, including both Kearns Junior and Jefferson Junior, that would put in motion continuing this boundary study to take care of the Silver Hills.
Yes, if the entire network was approved for reconfiguration, we would abandon the boundary study at this point in time.
Right. It's only if they're split that we would need the boundary study.
Correct.
Okay. Board members, discussion, questions.
Who represents this school physically?
Kearns Junior falls in my precinct, and Jefferson Junior falls in Chris's.
How do you guys feel about it? With everything that's been explained.
Do you want to go first, Chris, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
I know Kearns, I've attended some community councils for years, and this has been on Kearns Junior's radar for a long time, and I'm fully supportive of this reconfiguration there. So I know Scott, Scott Bell is the principal there, back row. He is absolutely wonderful. They're excited to get these numbers. Kearns Junior has lower numbers, which makes it really difficult to staff some of your elective courses. You know, when you have a half of a choir teacher and a half of a visual arts teacher at your school, that makes it really difficult for to have some wonderful electives offered. And so I know that I know they've got very specific plans to welcome the sixth graders, but I do know that those expanded numbers help the general population of the school, not just the sixth grade. So I'm fully supportive of that. As far as Jefferson goes, I do recognize that there's, not as much support. My feeling, and Chris, you can take over, but my feeling, not representing that precinct, but just what I'm seeing and the level of support, I think if we're saying that this is really good for sixth graders, then it's probably good for Jefferson Junior sixth graders as well as Kearns Junior sixth graders, but I'll let Chris speak more specifically to Jefferson.
So I think because I'm new, I'm not familiar with the Jefferson Junior High community as a whole. And so it looks to me like they're supportive if we go in this direction. But my concern is that if we have splinter groups that are not supportive, is that going to hurt that community? Because they're a pretty strong junior high. So I worry that we might have too much opposition. But again, I'm going to kind of reference the board. I'm new. I don't know this community as well as you guys who have been working on this. So I appreciate the feedback from the different schools.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
What's our major opposition from the Jefferson community?
Do you want to come up here and our freshly sanitized microphone, Ben? Right? Okay.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Kip Carlson. I'm the assistant principal. First off, we're more than happy and excited to have the sixth graders if they come next year. We're anticipating that fully with the results. I think the biggest thing is our school community council. As we explain the numbers, and we have higher numbers than Kearns Junior, and so we're able to offer those electives. We're at about 700, so that's a comfortable number for us. Our staff is good, and the school community councils they just felt comfortable with what Jefferson was offering and just the overall culture of the school. With that being said, we continue to explain the process and that they would very likely that the sixth graders would be coming up. And so they understood that, but just them personally, they felt like they were happy with Jefferson how it was, but fully supportive of bringing up the sixth graders.
I
is supportive if we do.
Yes.
I think the question I would like to ask all of us, including you, is what is the best thing for children? I mean, if we have seen success, like really good success in the schools that have taken sixth graders, I mean, what is the best thing for the kids?
Well, that's what I just stated a minute ago. I feel very strongly about Kearns Junior reconfiguring. I think those sixth graders will flourish in there, and I'm anticipating that Jefferson is already taking probably steps in preparation for those sixth graders. And the good news about gaining a grade is those numbers come up. And so if anything, you're going to be able to offer more. That's my personal opinion.
One other thing I would add to that is I came from a district where we had 3 grades, and you need that extra year because really middle school is that transition from an elementary to a high school, and our whole goal is to prepare those students for high school so they can be successful walking into 9th grade. And so I've done 2 years at Jefferson now, and it's hard to see those kids go by so quick, especially with the fourth quarter being shut down the way it was. I look forward to having sixth graders in the building as well, just to have one more year to help them transition and prepare them so we can send them off to high school.
So you feel like that extra year is critical in kind of being able to shepherd them and prepare them to high school.
Yeah, and it is hard, right? There's some kids that are way behind, developing. Others are ready to go, but we feel like we offer a great education in Jefferson, and so we want to have them there so that we can help them along that much faster.
Todd, did you have a comment?
How does this, I know we had there was a little discussion about some, maybe some boundary considerations, but what does it do for some of these small schools that only have maybe 2 classes per grade like Bacchus? Does it put them in a difficult position?
Taking the full grade out does not affect the number of teachers per grade in the grades that are left.
I know, but we talk about the size of schools before we look at their continuity, and I'm wondering if we're setting some schools up for that.
We look at how many classes per grade.
The difficulty of a small school is the split classes and the classes per grade. That's one of the major difficulties. That's not being affected by the removal of the 6th grade.
Did you have a comment, Terry?
Good.
Connie? No?
Can
All right, thank
make a
you so much.
comment?
Please do.
Sorry. So I'm kind of split on this. Because I've sat in the community councils of a lot of those elementaries that are in both of these networks. I cover about half of them. And I know particularly Fox Hills, this is a huge concern. I know they want to have that opportunity because they are a split feeder. And so I do support that, and I think that is important. I'm torn between pedagogically, we know this is good. We know that the way that the curriculum is written is 6-8. It's it's better for the kids. As the principal stated, that it's nice to have them for 3 years instead of just 2. But I guess my question to pose to everybody else also is that if this is supposed to be a community-driven decision, are we standing by that? And if so, are we respecting the community with the Jefferson, the Jefferson reconfiguration? Are they truly supportive? Are there concerns that we do need to let them resolve there and let them have maybe another year? Or do we go ahead and go forward with that? I'm not sure if we really want to continue to preserve that this is a community process and not just something that we decide on our own, or we decide because we, for whatever reason. Is it good for us to go ahead and do that with the Jefferson community? Is it good to push that forward? I don't know what other people think about that.
Any replies? Chris?
I agree with Nicole in a way, because that's how it was presented when we reconfigured. It was community driven. It was not district driven. And so that is why I'm really hesitant with the Jefferson Junior, because it doesn't show that for that feeder, it's totally on board. They're not totally on board. And so if it's a community-based drive, I'm not showing that for Jefferson Junior, that's community-based as maybe I feel comfortable with. So
Well, we do have 4 elementaries who are in favor of moving those kids up.
the overall community,
Yeah.
sorry, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the Kearns Network reconfiguration.
We have a motion to accept the Kearns Network reconfiguration. We have a second. Nope. Okay, we'll continue discussing then. This one is tricky to me because, Nicole, you bring up a good point. I think this is tricky because...
Can we separate them out?
We can, but can I make my comment first?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no, you're good. This is tricky because I feel in my heart of hearts that the 6th grade needs to be moved up. And so I feel like now we're tasked with choosing between what's good for kids and what the community feels their voice needs to be heard. Here's the problem. Both of those are true. The community voice needs to be heard and respected, but as a board, we're here for the kids above everybody else. And so that's where, in my mind, maybe we have to do a little bit of soul searching and say, hey, what are we going to say is the most important here tonight? And that's where I think some of my thoughts are. Does anybody have thoughts they want to
let me perhaps
go forward?
Just make an observation, and that's that this was presented to the board a month ago, and I don't know that from the administration we've received any feedback from the community in opposition to the recommendation as it was going to come. And board members, you'll know for yourselves if you heard from the Jefferson community opposition to the direction that was clearly articulated at the last board meeting.
And that is a good point, Martin, to bring up. I personally have not received anything opposing this. Chris, you represent Jefferson. Maybe you've had some emails.
I have not had any emails. However, I've only had a district email for a month. So it's been flooded with other COVID issues. So I don't know. Yeah, they did now.
But they have had it for the month between the last board meeting.
I just worry that maybe because of other things going on right now, maybe I need to just look at it closer, but I'm okay if we end up voting on it. I just will vote how I feel.
I think we've moved, we really want community involvement. I think we've given this community lots of time to be involved. And you have the majority of your elementaries saying yes. So I think we have to give some, at least listen to what our elementary administrators and teachers are saying.
All right, let's hear from Todd and then Connie Burgess.
Yeah, first, I don't think we're hearing from the administrators or the teachers. We're hearing from the community councils. But procedurally, does this have to be decided tonight in order for it to be good for that next year's school year, or can there be?
No, it does not need to be decided.
It doesn't have to be, but we have, just to reiterate, this has been open for comment for the last month.
I understand, but procedurally, we don't have a deadline tonight, correct?
That's correct.
Nope.
Thank you.
Connie.
So I just have a question. Why did Jefferson Community Council oppose this? Please.
One of the issues was a number that we have. We have about 700 students at our school, and that's great for electives. They're able to take the electives they need, unlike Kearns Junior, their numbers are a little bit lower. And overall, they enjoyed the culture of the school. Anytime you add or take away from a school, you run into the possibility of good and bad. And so those were the two major things. The numbers were good, and the culture is they enjoy it. So.
What's the building capacity?
It's the same. Maybe somebody can help me out. As Benyon and Hunter Junior. I don't know, but they've had over 1,000 in the past. And I know they've had portables when there were a lot more students than that. But
it hosted 3 grades previously.
Yeah.
We listed at 1,200 on our facility sheet.
Listening to you talk, it's almost as if your community is expecting this to happen. Am I misreading that, or because that's what I'm hearing?
I think that Principal Horton did a good job of just explaining to them that it was a super majority. So we wanted them, to be honest in how they voted and how they felt, but also just to encourage you to be supporting what the decision was within the Kearns network.
And thanks for bringing that up. This community still is a supermajority of support, which I think is going a little bit back to Terry, what you're getting at, that we are listening to the community because they had to get 3/4 of their schools on the same page in order for even come here last month and tonight. So I just want to remind board members that there is a supermajority to even be here in the final vote.
With respect to that, go ahead, Nicole, sorry to interrupt.
I just wanted to, I guess my concern lies not necessarily in the specific emails that we're getting from this network, but I just, looking at the comments that have been made as we've gone through this with Taylorsville and with Olympus, a lot of them on the even social media that we've seen that, the district's going to do this anyway, it doesn't matter what we think, they're just going to plow through with this. So I think I just want to be really careful that we are respecting, if this community really does not support it, that we're not just plowing through this if we are really serious about giving them a voice. And that's just my concern. I think it's fair to say if they are ready and willing and they're going to be able to handle it, I have no doubt that Jefferson will handle it beautifully. And again, I want to say that I do know that this is pedagogically the correct thing. As we studied this, it is really the best thing to do for schools. But that's the question. Are we as a board going to start making that decision and saying, look, this is what is going to happen? Or are we still going to respect the community and what they want?
Can I speak to that just really briefly?
Yes, go ahead, Ben.
I do just want to make some observations and then ask Kip here, sorry, Kip Carlson, I just know your very first name, question for his observation, because I did spend a couple of hours with their school community council. I would point out that the Silver Hills data that you're seeing here on this slide represents 7 people, 7 families. It was such a small portion, it was still half of their contingency of that little triangle that I showed you in that boundary. And overall, Silver Hills as a school is very much in favor with over plus 44% as part of the Kennedy portion. So that automatically just drags down the overall statistics. If you actually take out Silver Hills, they are still a net plus support. Now, it's no skin off my back either way in terms of what the board decides to do. I just want to make sure it's clear that as a community as a whole, there is broader support than what you're seeing here on this particular slide. When I visited with this council and we reviewed this data, it was really brought up that it's kind of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yes.
Is that, am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, they
Not
like the
grammatically
culture there and the
correctly, but-
numbers.
It was really more of a milquetoast attitude towards it as opposed to being opposed to it. I don't want to speak for that community. I did feel, as I visited with Diamond Ridge, there was some concerns with respect to sending students up to Jefferson. But I don't want to, I just wanted to make sure that was clear and the board had that information, I guess.
No, you said it very well. They weren't opposed to it. They just didn't see a need for it or a reason behind it that would benefit the school.
And as you indicated, Rod was very clear, Principal Horton was very clear to, hey, do what you'd like to do. We're just here to support whatever the council wants to do at that point in time. So
yes,
that's kind of was my impression anyway.
Yeah, and shared that, maybe just potential positives and negatives of both and explained the process. But once again, we try to explain that we want the students there. And if the elementaries want the students there, the majority, then we're ready and willing to take them and help them get along on their way.
That's all. I just wanted that.
Okay, thank you. I think, can we just go ahead and split these and take Kearns first?
Can I just say something really quick?
Oh, absolutely.
I think as a board, over the several years that we've been working on reconfiguration over the years through all of our networks, we as a board have really taken the time to listen to what people are saying and giving them the opportunity to be heard. I've also seen that because we've taken that time, sometimes we start pitting communities against communities. And we saw that happen. I'd hate to see us now be in a position where those in favor are at odds with those that are against. And finally, we as a board had to take a stand and make a decision with one of our networks. And I think we might be at that point here where we just have to take a stand and say, okay, what's best for kids? I think we have listened to and respected the opinions of our community councils and our communities, but sometimes it's just important that we step up and do what is best for kids. So.
Can I get you one piece of information before you?
Only if you speak into a microphone.
And can I just add, while you're getting the microphone, I totally support that. I just want to make sure that we understand that we're prepared to do that with every other network now.
Just something that you may want to consider as well, if you look to separate this, is something that tends to happen sometimes is we do have some mobility in the area. And so there could literally be a sixth grader that would be going to junior high and then be asked to go to an elementary in the same school year as they move. So when it's in a network.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Okay, so let's go ahead and take these separately. We can vote on them we can vote on each one of them, but can we do the Kearns network first? All right. I'll entertain a motion. The Kearns Junior High network reconfiguration.
I move that we accept the recommendation and reconfigure the Kearns Junior High feeder system for 2021, 2022.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the Kearns Junior High network reconfiguration for the 2021-2022 year. Any further comment from board members? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to the Jefferson Junior High feeder reconfiguration. I'll entertain a motion on that. Or not.
Got to do something.
No, we don't.
So I move that we accept Jefferson Junior High feeders to reconfigure sixth grade for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll second that.
Right, we have a motion and a second on the table to approve the Jefferson Junior High feeder reconfiguration. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Aye. Nicole, what was your vote?
I'm a yes.
You're a yes. Okay, I didn't catch that. Sorry. Okay, so let me just verify. That was a 5 in favor, 2 opposed. Chris and Todd are opposed. Do I have that right? All right. Thank you for clarifying. Motion passes with a vote of 5-2. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, principals.
Yes, thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate
You're welcome
you.
to stay, but this next piece is fascinating stuff.
Thank you. Have a great evening. And thank you for all of your hard work. We know that you're going the extra mile. Thanks for taking care of our teachers as well. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next item. Our last action item is our, oh, I have the wrong thing.
Board
Our
members, your
bond.
last action item for tonight
Yes.
is the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation school building bonds, which would be a series of 2020. This is the remaining $80 million that we have left on that last voter authorization from a couple of years ago. So I'd like to introduce two people to you, reintroduce to you. Dale Okerlund is our financial advisor. Dale, if you'd join us at the front table. Dale is with Lewis, Young, Robertson, Birmingham. He's the architect of our financing plan. And Brandon Johnson, Brandon, if you'd like to come up. Brandon is the bond attorney that we use. He's the one that wrote that 30-page document that I'm sure all of you read. So Dale would like to explain a little bit, I think, about our process. This starts the part of the bond sale, which will now carry on for another month or two, and then answer any questions and explain the timing to you.
Madam President, board members, superintendent, we're glad to be here. The overall context of what we are doing here fits into the plan that was developed prior to the election. So this is the penultimate step. That is the final bond issue in that plan that will complete that part of the capital plan. Ordinarily, we would be doing this about 6 weeks later in the year. We've recommended that be moved up so that we can have the bonds sold and delivered prior to the bond election. There's some concern among bond traders out there that we could have volatility or even some disruption in the market after the election. So we want to be ahead of that.
You just said the bond election. Did you mean the general election?
The general election. I'm sorry. I misspoke.
And it's your feeling that this is advantageous for us to move it up 6 weeks?
Yes.
And that's your recommendation?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, definitely. And we did a fair amount of research to reach that conclusion. The final step, well, not the final step, but the key or ultimate step you'll need to do next year, which will be to shift the falling off amount of the debt service levy because of the way we've configured the bonds into your capital budget. So you can shift more towards a pay-as-you-go capital plan. So that would then be the ultimate step. Obviously, there will be necessary tweakage every year thereafter, but that's the biggest step to complete.
But everything else you're proposing today is the same, and it's consistent with the plan that we've gone with up to this point, except for doing it 6 weeks earlier.
That's exactly right. And that's a relatively minor adjustment in the plan. The market rates are extraordinarily low. Interest rates are the least of your concerns, let me put it that way.
I'd make a motion that we accept this adjustment.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second on the table to, let me read it. For the resolution providing for the issuance of general obligation bonds, Series 2020. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, both of you.
Thanks for
Thank you
being here
very
tonight.
much.
We tried to make it quick and easy for you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our reports, starting with the superintendent report.
Board members, just one thing. We talked earlier about our regular meetings with the health department. There is considerable optimism at the health department that immunizations will become available in limited numbers at the close of this calendar year, and then immunizations will be available for the general public late winter, early spring is how they've described that. While that does provide a light at the end of the tunnel, and I think gives me a lot of hope and everybody a lot of hope, that hope really comes to fruition for the next school year. And so we've been talking as a staff and as an administration, and also with the schools, that we think we're pretty much going to be wearing these masks through the rest of the school year, and that our decisions need to be that way. And we've suggested to the high school principals, although you this evening approved a schedule at the Huntsman Center, that we probably ought to be planning that would be an exception, but that what we are probably need to be planning for our high school graduations the way we did them this past spring, and that we should look at the other activities and traditions that we have in the context of, in this year, we're going to hopefully meet the same goals and objectives, but we'll need to meet those differently. And that's the conversation we've been having internally, and wanted to prepare you for that, and we'll start preparing our schools and our communities that way. So that's what I wanted to share with you this evening.
Thank you. All right, Terry.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I had the opportunity to serve as a delegate at the USBA delegate program, and they did a great job. I want to thank y'all, Lexi, and I especially want to take this opportunity to thank Todd for his service on the USBA executive, is it committee? Whatever you're on. I think Todd's done a great job. I know his expertise has been appreciated, and I just think we need to recognize that. Also, I had an opportunity to visit every school before school started in my area, and there was anxiety, but there was excitement. And I know our elementaries appreciated what we did a week, 2 weeks ago yesterday, and holding that meeting and changing how we proceed with our elementaries. They appreciated the opportunity to make the decision themselves based on what they knew. So I thought that was good. And I had the opportunity to go volunteer at Westlake. That was fun. One day, and the day that the internet was down, and they rushed me into the lunchroom to help write down names because they couldn't bring it up on the computer. And it was great to see how the kids are doing, and how Westlake and Tyler and his staff, and it was great to see their positivity. So just wanted to report on that.
Todd?
Yeah, also in connection with the delegate assembly and the work that's going on at the USBA, I just want to publicly thank Lexi Cunningham for stepping into some big shoes. She's doing a great job, and we appreciate your advocacy for our board and for the other boards. Lexi, thank you very much. I don't have anything else.
I don't have much, though I do have a request that we could learn about the constitutional change, or what's coming up involving the school. If we could, have that before we have to vote on it, I would really like. I am just excited. I've heard lots of excitement with the school starting, so I'm glad, and thanks to everyone that's done so much to get everything ready. Thanks.
Chris?
I just want to thank Don Adams. He gave me a tour of the new Hunter edition and also South Kearns Elementary, and that was just beautiful and wonderful, and thank you so much. And I think the kids are happy to be back at school that are back at school, and there's challenges for sure, but I think they're meeting those challenges. Our teachers are phenomenal and doing a great job. So thank you.
Connie.
I had the opportunity to visit my schools too, and it's starting to become, what's the word I'm looking for?
Late.
No, Terry. Poignant that I know that December's my last month, and the opportunities that I've had to work with principals and teachers at those schools. And it was, I stood in the Mill Creek cafeteria, and Ann Kane, that's the principal, said, you know, I had my hesitations, but she said, this is why we do what we do. And she said, now that these kids are back, I feel so wonderful about being here. And I stood in the hall with Terry Roylance at Cottonwood as she would talk, and she directed kids to the correct room, which I don't know how you keep track of what the correct room is at Cottonwood, but just very sweet, good visits, and appreciate that opportunity.
Thanks, Connie.
That's all I have.
Nicole.
Wake up, Nicole.
Are you still with us? Oh, there you are. Do you have anything you want to say?
I just want to point out that Connie called it Mill Creek and not Mill Creek.
That warmed my heart. I heard it too.
My mom would say it that way too. So
You're not even here. How come you're giving me a hard time?
Well, you know, I
Where
think,
the
yeah, anyway,
grows
no,
tall
I
and
just,
smart.
I also want to reiterate what Terry said. I was able to go to the USBA and be a delegate at the USBA meeting. I really do appreciate Todd. I think it's been wonderful to have his expertise there, and he has done a phenomenal job in representing us. It was really interesting to talk about these things and to kind of get that perspective, and I loved being part of that. So I appreciated doing that and seeing what's on the horizon for us. And there are some important things that we need to be paying attention to. I have not visited any schools as of yet because I've been at my own school. But I will just say that as far as what I've seen in my own experience and with my own kids even, I want to also just say a huge shout out, huge thank you to the teachers. They've been phenomenal. I know there was a lot of stress. There is still a lot of stress. I know there is a ton of work that they're doing, but I appreciate the administrators and their hard work and their support of their teachers. I appreciate the teachers and what they are doing to make this happen, make this work. I know it's a lot of work. It's so much extra work, but I just want to say thanks. I know that at least the ones that we've been, that we've used in our household. I shouldn't say used. But that we've had in our household, the teachers that we've dealt with are just phenomenal. And so I just want to thank them, thank everybody who has worked so hard to get the school year started and get the kids back to school. Thanks so much.
thanks, Nicole. I could probably just say ditto to everything Nicole just said. It's been exciting for my own kids as we talked about whether they wanted to go back or be online, and they were very adamant that they wanted to go back in school. And as I've picked up my junior high daughter, it's, you have to get there early if you want a spot. And so I have a few minutes to see the kids walk past my car, waiting for her to come out. So they are all, when they first walk out, I can't see their face because of their mask. But of course, as soon as they leave school grounds, those masks come off and they have smiles. And you could argue if they should keep their mask on or not, but I really noticed those smiles. And they are excited to be back in. And so it just warms my heart. I know I know we have COVID cases, and we just have to navigate that. And we're going to need to work together to navigate that. We need the community's help. We need to be in together with this to slow the spread. We need you to not send your kids sick so that we can protect other students and we can also protect our employees. And so we kind of send that plea out there for the entire community. That being said, my daughter was one that got the notice and a letter on her third day of school that somebody else in her class had been there, and the panic on her face, she thought she was getting a letter saying to have to quarantine. Her specific letter just said watch for symptoms because due to her schedule, she had, had some exposure, but not the direct exposure. And it was just interesting for me to kind of see her as I read the email and see her excitement that she could still go to class. And while I'm sad for those that are quarantined, it just in a broader spectrum, I always look at my kids, but I always try to think kind of picture the bigger picture with other kids. And I'm excited for the amount of work that our administrators, our principals, and our teachers have done in order to have that in-person learning for those choosing that, and also the online learners, and to support our online learners. So we have some work to do. We have some things to fix. We fully recognize that, and we have the right people working on those things. And so please be patient with us as we go through these tough times. These are uncharted waters, and we're trying to tread water together. So be patient with us. But I just want to give a big shout out to all the people working so hard to try to do everything we can to keep these kids in school learning and to keep our online learners learning as well. And with that, I apologize. No, go ahead, Terry.
I failed to recognize all of our employees, our custodians, our kitchen folk, everyone has
bus drivers
been involved in Herculean
Dawn's
effort
people
to make it happen. We've talked a lot about teachers, but there are a lot of people that have made this happen.
Absolutely. And
I want to thank them.
No, you're fine, Terry. That actually, thank you for that, because it reminded me, we've got to give a huge shout out to Don Adams and his warehouse team.
And Dave Garrett.
And whoever's in charge of that, we thank you, because we know the warehouse has literally been working 24/7. There have been so many requests for supplies, not only cleaning supplies, but just general beginning of school. And so you put COVID on top of this. And Don and Dave, whoever, if you'll communicate to your teams how much we as a board appreciate the long, hard hours. And so thank you, because that popped into my mind, Don Adams. There you go. Because that was on my list tonight to thank him and Dave's team, all the warehouse people, all the custodians, everybody. We're all in this together. That's how I started my board comments, and that's how I'll end them. So there you go. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks, you guys.
Why didn't Connie start singing?